Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. Let me start by saying that I travel around a lot for work. I travel all over the world. I won't disclose the exact location this story took place due to privacy/work reasons, but let's just say I had decided to move on a whim because of an increase in crime. Now, I am only at home for about 5 to 7 months out of the year, depending on the types of assignments I need to do, so to some degree I am not really worried about crime. But there has been a major influx in robberies in the local news, and I had a $290,000 classic Ford Mustang sitting in my driveway. I was terrified that something was going to happen to it. I had it for 10 years, and it was quite literally my pride and joy, my child, if you will. So when I decided to move because of crime, it may not have been for my own safety, but rather my car's safety. Crazy what we do for the things that we love, right? Even crazier is that I thought moving into an homeowners associations would be safer. Ha ha. Boy, was I wrong. At first, it was actually quite nice. I was given a formal introduction to everyone like the board members. Unfortunately, I was not able to meet the homeowners association's president as he was traveling, but a couple of the board members said very nice things about him. I noticed two of the board members gave each other side-eye when the others were saying nice things about him, but I didn't really think anything of it. After all, not everyone can like each other. I soon would find out what those side-eye looks were about. I was able to meet the homeowners association's president about 2 weeks later. What is the male version of a Karen? Are they called Kyles? We'll call this guy Kyle. At first, Kyle was very polite and friendly. He wore a snazzy suit and seemed very polished and posh. I would estimate he was about 10, 15 years older than I was. He met me at my house and said he wanted to personally welcome me to the neighborhood. We were making conversation and everything was going great until I asked him if he wanted to see my car. His eyes lit up at first, and I was excited at finding a possible new friend who was just as excited about cars as I was. This quickly changed when he laid eyes on my car. It was almost an immediate switch. He went from this happy-go-lucky, posh man to someone who resembled bitterness and jealousy, and he didn't even try to hide it. It made me pretty uncomfortable, actually. He made small comments about how he can't believe someone younger than him was able to get his dream car, and how I must have cheated the system to get it. Whatever that meant, I don't really know. I do know that I worked really hard for it, and I wasn't going to let him or anyone take that away from me. I asked him to leave, very politely. It was awkward, but he left. I figured that would be the end of our issues, but guess what? I was wrong about that too. Turns out Mr. Homeowners Association's president lives on the same street as I do. Whenever I would see him for the next week or so, he would avoid eye contact with me. If I waved to him or said hi, he would completely ignore me and act like I don't exist. I also noticed more police guards in the neighborhood, which was a little concerning. However, one of my neighbors had mentioned that Kyle was an absolute prick, and actually hired these guards to patrol the neighborhood. Sometimes, when he would issue violations to people he simply didn't like, he would extort his power onto these guards and use them to get violations paid in cash or keep people locked in their house until they paid up. It sounds crazy, right? I know it does sound crazy, and I honestly didn't believe the second part until it happened to me. See, Kyle's bitterness got to the point where he started writing me fines for the dumbest things. He wrote me a violation for parking too close to my neighbor's driveway. He also wrote me another fine for my car not being parked straight in my own driveway. Is that even in homeowners associations rule? There were a lot more violations, but they're so stupid and the list got so long. I obviously didn't pay any of these. Until one day, these homeowners associations cops, or guards, or whatever they were, showed up at my house. They demanded that I pay the latest round of fines, and that because I was behind on paying them, I had to pay them in cash. I told them that I didn't have that much cash on me. I did, but still I wasn't going to pay them for these stupid things. Maybe I should have, and I would still have my OG Ford Mustang. Anyways, these guards then basically swarmed around my house. I literally could not leave my house without them harassing me, so it was basically like being on house arrest. You might be reading this and ask why I didn't call the police. Well, I'm young and dumb and assumed that Kyle had connections with the actual police, so a few days into my house arrest, they knocked on my door again and asked me if I could pay. Except this time, Kyle was with them. I told them again that no, I cannot, and to my surprise, they just walked away. I should have known it was going to be suspicious. Later that night, I woke up to a loud crashing sound, almost like a window being broken. And then I realized my car was parked right outside my window, and my heart dropped. I rushed to the window and I saw Kyle smashing all of my windows with a bat. I was heartbroken, but if I went out there, I was afraid he would hurt me too, or he would have his guards hurt me. I took a recording from my cell phone and called the cops the next morning. The cops came, and there was some confrontation between the guards and the cops, but nonetheless, I was still able to speak to the cops. I explained to them the situation and showed them the video of Kyle vandalizing my car. I also explained to them why I didn't call the cops immediately, and that I was kind of new to homeowners associations. But from what I heard, it seemed like Kyle was taking advantage of his power in the homeowners associations. Kyle ends up getting arrested, and apparently some of his little guards do too. I don't really care about them, but it was nice to know. The cops asked me if I wanted to press charges, and of course I said yes. I took Kyle to a court battle that didn't last very long, and not only did he get jail time and a permanent suspension from the homeowners associations, but he also had to pay me $200,000 in fines. I guess this kind of money is nothing to someone like Kyle, or he was tired of dealing with the whole thing because he paid immediately before he got sentenced. Not only that, but the homeowners association's board members actually raised more money for me so that I could buy a new Ford Mustang because they knew how important it was to me. So I got to keep some of the money. I spent some of it on security cameras and some on the maintenance of my new car. Wonder what Kyle is up to these days. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Let me set the scene. The year is 2017, and my family and I live in a quiet suburban street. It's mostly retired couples and some families with very young kids. Normal. Now, earlier this year, the house diagonally from us decided to move and sold it. About a day after everything's packed away, 5 cars come peeling down the street and pull into the driveway and onto the road. They're a bunch of college-age kids, so we give them some slack and let them go for a day or two. Meanwhile, day in and day out, different cars keep peeling down the street, some going over 30 miles per hour over the speed limit. This does not go over well with the neighbors, since most of the younger kids walk and ride their bikes down our street. Everyone's concerned they might hurt someone or someone's dog. Before something serious can happen, some of the neighbors who've lived here for 20-plus years go over and meet the newbies. This includes my mom. They're polite at first. They agreed to not go over 35, but more cars keep racing down the road. Along with that, they seem to be having parties every other Tuesday with about 30 cars up the street. Now the niceties are over, and the cops are called. Usually they wouldn't do this, but about 5 calls came in from a bunch of houses, and the police department was fed up. Having nothing better to do, they send one of the deputies, and they wait around the corner for a few hours a day. About 2 fines are given, and then they slow down. Except they get smart. There's only one place the deputy can hide, so they send 1 car to see if they're there. If not, they speed again. The deputy gives up after about 3 days and is gone. A few months pass, and we were at a loss for what to do. Summer is almost here, so my brother and I are outside more. We have a basketball hoop at the edge of the road right across from the house. Our driveway is at almost a 45-degree angle, and all my brother's buddies come and play, so we leave it there. There's a problem. The cars keep parking to block the hoop. My brother's pissed since that's all he used to do in the summer. He goes over to the house and the guys just shut the door on him. Now my mom's pissed. She marches over there and asks them to move their cars, sweetly, and when they refuse, she hatches a plan. That summer was a hot one, and my mom decides to cook some homemade pea soup. Now she burns this batch, by accident, of course. Instead of chucking it out, she puts it in this big plastic jar, seals the lid, and places it out on the back porch in the middle of the sun. Weeks pass, and she occasionally opens it. There are maggots squirming around, and it turned a deep brown green. There's also this clear yellow liquid that separated itself at the top. Disgusting. Meanwhile, my brother is determined to play basketball when there's a little opening. About 20 minutes in, the ball bounces onto one of the cars by accident. There was no mark, but the car alarm goes off, so he's trying to leave. I run out to see one of the regulars who lived there, a woman yelling obscenities at my brother and how he needs to pay for her car. My mother runs out after me and starts yelling at the lady to get away from my brother. There was no damage, and it was clear, but the lady kept screaming. My brother and I run inside and watch as the woman follows my mom up the driveway, waving her arms and still yelling. My mom yells for her to get off her property or she'll call the cops. By now, our older neighbors are watching, some walking over, and the lady realizes that she better leave or she might actually get in trouble. She runs across the street and slams the door. Around 2 a.m. on a Tuesday during one of their parties, my mom puts on a gas mask, My dad worked in pest control, so he had one, and takes out the soup. The stench was terrible. It was rotting meat and something indescribable. She takes the jar and goes over to the cars as quietly as possible. She dumps the rotting pea soup onto almost every car's windshield, and into that space where there are the windshield wipers. Before anything, I have to explain these were nice cars. Not sports cars, but Priuses and new cars, which don't fit with their age. The next morning, my mom is sitting in the garage, smoking a cigarette like always. It's around 6 a.m., and the lady that yelled at my brother comes out first. She's obviously tired and gets into her car. A minute or two passes, and this woman has the most disgusted face. She turns on the windshield wipers, and a hunk of rotting ham is sent flying. My mom's now in tears, and I mean tears. I wake up and head downstairs to the garage to see the woman yelling, and about 20-ish kids heading out to their cars. Each one is trashed. The cops are called, but since there's no evidence, they can't press charges against my mom. One by one, they leave in their ruined cars. They moved out 3 weeks later. The next one is a petty revenge story. This happened about 10 years ago. There was a Karen who had been with the company for nearly 15 years. Her title was project manager, but she was really more of an office admin, and various internal projects would get pushed to her. These were things to help improve how the office worked, but nothing critical. One of these projects was actually deemed important, and it was reassigned to me. She hated this and stonewalled me all the time. It caused the project to be delayed, and I was getting crap from some of the executives because of this. When I commented that it was difficult to get information from Karen, she became super sweet and said she was bending over backwards to help me. I didn't understand the project, etc. I powered through anyway. But then, there was a round of layoffs, and she was one of them. Due to her time with the company, she received a 3-month severance and extended benefits. It was weird, but the company essentially cut monthly severance checks instead of paying them out all at once. But she also had to sign an NDA and non-disparagement agreement on the exit, as well as confirm that she had handed over all company materials and files. I went to grab some files related to the project, and everything was gone. Karen had deleted everything. This was before using things like Teams, Google Drive, etc. Everything was on a shared network drive, so it wasn't super easy to get the backup. But Boomer Karen was the type that used her work email for all her personal accounts, including LinkedIn. It was also company policy that the emails of departed employees would be forwarded to their department heads for a few months. Using this knowledge, I went to LinkedIn and sent a message. "Hi, Karen. I heard about your departure. I hope you can use the time to take the vacation you talked about. I went to grab some of the files but noticed they were missing. Do you have backups you could share?" When she responded, it also went to her old email, and thus to the department head. "Don't pretend to be nice. I wouldn't be surprised if you helped me get fired. Good luck finding any of those files. I deleted everything. Screw you." Well, when that got forwarded to HR that she had put in writing that she had deleted everything, it was determined that this violated the severance agreement. All severance checks were immediately stopped. Oh, so sorry, Boomer. The next one is an entitled people story. I thought stores would be closed or have shorter hours during the holidays. Once I got to the store, I saw that I was sadly, for the people working there, mostly wrong. But that meant I would not need to buy as much as I initially thought. I brought 3 reusable shopping bags with me, but ended up needing just one. While I can't say I have an emotional attachment to these bags, I do like them very much. I bought them because I loved the design, color, and print on them, and paid a bit more than one would when buying reusable shopping bags in a grocery store. They are nice, practical, and I like them. I finished loading my stuff onto the conveyor belt at the cash register and put the separator so that the person behind me does not waste time, but can start unloading their haul. Lastly, I put my 3 bags on top of my stuff because I had them in the shopping cart while I was picking stuff up. While I am fishing out my wallet from my purse, I catch a flash of color in my periphery. I look up and see the woman behind me reaching over and taking 2 of my bags. Confused, I stutter, "Excuse me, those are not store bags, those are my own property. Please give them back to me." Entitled woman, "I know these are not the store ones, I'm not an idiot. This store has red bags with their logo on them." Me, "Then why are you taking my property?" Entitled woman, "You don't need all of them? Your groceries will fit nicely into just that one? I need these. Mind your own business and stop making a scene." Now I'm confused and getting irritated. I'm making a scene? For confronting her politely about taking my stuff? But before I can even react, the older gentleman who was a customer before me in line and just finished paying his bill, as well as the cashier, round on this woman. Cashier. You will give her back her property or I will have security escort you out. Customer before me. How dare you behave as if you are the one being inconvenienced? You take this girl's property and tell her she does not need it and should not resist you? If you need reusable bags, just buy them for yourself. Entitled woman starts huffing and puffing. Now wait just a minute, why are you all making such a scene? Cashier all but yells, Now! I'm not negotiating or listening to you. Taking the property of others is stealing, no matter how you try to reason it. The cashier then picks up her mic and calls security to the register, looking at entitled woman sternly. Cashier, what will it be? Entitled woman gives me back my bags while mumbling something about, it's just a few worthless bags. I thank the cashier and the old man and go on my merry way. I did not do much but stand my ground, but the cashier and the old man were the MVPs. It did warm my heart that people saw something nasty and immediately jumped in to correct the foul behavior. Happy holidays, everyone. The next one is an entitled parent story. I am a 19-year-old and the second child of my parents. I have 3 brothers aged 21, 13, and 7, and a 16-year-old sister. We grew up poor, and our parents often relied on financial help from relatives and friends to raise us. This is because even though my dad has a mediocre job and my mom doesn't work, they kept having more children. My parents are very religious and believe that children are a gift from God. Personally, I think that's total nonsense. My parents' reproductive choices wouldn't bother me if they hadn't negatively affected mine and my siblings' lives. While growing up, we never had new clothes or toys. We had to accept handouts from family members who were better off. We never went out or did anything fun. On top of that, we were well aware that the rest of the family looked down on us for constantly asking for help. Now, my older brother and I have managed to get into good colleges and are looking forward to a future that will be better than our parents. Due to the COVID-19 lockdown, we were staying at our parents' place for a while. One morning, my parents called all 5 of us into the living room. Mom said she had great news. The smile that was forming on my face quickly vanished when she said, We're pregnant. I lost my temper. I asked them how they could be so foolish and irresponsible. Don't they have enough financial troubles already without bringing another mouth to feed? My older brother tried to calm me down, but I was furious. After a lifetime of scarcity because of my parents' foolishness, they still hadn't learned their lesson. I asked them how they planned to provide for the child. My dad told me I would have to give up the money our great-uncle had left me. He had left all 5 of us some money, which we could only access when we turned 18. I said, absolutely not. That money would help pay for my college expenses. He called me selfish for not being there for the family. I told them that if they couldn't provide for the child, they should consider getting an abortion. My mom started crying and called me a heartless monster. Dad told me he was disgusted with me. I told them there was no way I was going to pay for their foolishness, and the only thing I would be willing to pay for is an abortion. What I was truly worried about was my siblings' lives getting even worse. My older brother and I have escaped our parents' grasp, but the others, especially my younger sister, will be expected to help take care of this baby. No teenager deserves to have their adolescence ruined by diapers and a screaming baby. I know what it's like because I had to go through that. It was expected of me to be an unpaid nanny to my younger brothers and sister. While my older brother could go out with his friends and have fun, I had to stay home and help give baths and feed the toddlers. I decided to involve some family members so they could talk some sense into my parents. I called my mom's maternal cousin, who is one of my favorite people. When I told her that mom and dad were having another kid, she reacted with, "What? Again?" I told her everything, including how they expected me to hand over my inheritance. She said she was going to speak to my parents and told me not to sign over anything. I promised her I wouldn't. Of course I won't. I also called 2 of my first cousins, one of whom is an accountant. I wanted her to explain to my parents how much of a financial burden this baby is going to be and try to convince them to either abort or give it up for adoption. I moved out of my parents' home a few days ago. I was only planning to stay there until the lockdown was relaxed. But I just can't bear to listen to my mom's nagging about how this baby is a blessing, and that I want to kill it. I've moved into a friend's basement for a minimal rent. My mom's cousin paid them a visit about a week ago and tried to tell them they weren't doing this child any favors by bringing it into a life of poverty. My mom was very rude to my aunt and told her that a woman who chose to remain childless will never understand a mother's love. My aunt never wanted kids nor had any, which is one of the reasons she's my favorite. My dad told her to get out. My aunt told me there was nothing she could do, but she did try. I didn't blame her. The cousin tried to explain the economic impact this child would have, and my mom cried about how everyone was trying to take away her baby. What the heck? The intervention didn't accomplish anything, so now I've decided to cut contact with my parents. I just can't watch my family slide further and further into a terrible situation. I'll maintain contact with my sister, 16, just to make sure my parents can't brainwash her. My older brother will stay in touch with all of them, which is a good thing, as he can act as a link between me and the other siblings if my parents ever forbid them from talking to me. Otherwise, I'm done with these people. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.